Okay, so birth story of baby June. A 26-week-old with Down syndrome who also has congenital heart defect called complete AVSD and some other issues with her heart. So it was September 12th. I went into the hospital. I was in excruciating pain. Like, I was doubled over. I was crying. Called the doctor. They said, you need to go to labor and delivery. So I go over there. They start monitoring me. They get my blood work back. They're like, you have an infection. So they want to put me on IV antibiotics and just monitor me overnight. So Tuesday rolls around and like they have me on some pain meds to help with the pain and stuff like that. And 7 p.m. I am like physically getting sick, like filling those little bags they give you. And I'm doubled over crying. I'm in so much pain. And I have this nurse that won't give me my pain meds, won't give me my anti-nausea medication. She thinks I'm probably like making this all up and faking it. So they're thinking like it's kidney stones at that point too. And from what they know now, they think I probably passed the kidney stone on Monday. And Tuesday is probably when my placenta started to tear off. Like I had a partial placenta abruption. They found out the next day when I finally did go into labor. So I wanted out of that hospital. I just don't want that nurse back. And I knew she was coming back Wednesday night. So I was like, I need to get out of here. I had a doctor's appointment on Thursday. Like, I denied a cervical check. I'm like, I'll just deal with everything my doctor's appointment on Thursday, thinking I'll be fine. The infection, looked like it was getting a little bit better. They sent me home with antibiotics and pain meds. And I didn't take any of the pain meds. I was having contractions in the hospital. They kept doing non-stress tests. And they were like every 5 minutes, but they weren't painful, probably because I was on pain meds. So they just felt like Braxton Hicks. I'm like, no big deal. It's not labor. It's just Braxton Hicks. So I go ahead, and on the way home from that hospital, my contractions start to happen like every 4 minutes. And they still kind of felt like Braxton Hicks. I've had early labor before, and I'm like, okay, just take it easy. So get home, and I just start packing a bag, knowing like I'm going to be going back to the hospital. So I call the doctor. I wait an hour just to see if anything changes. Nothing is. They're just getting more consistent. And I know that I'm going to have to go to labor and delivery. And they said, you can go back to the hospital you just got out of, or you can come over to the one with the NICU unit. And so I did not want to go back to the hospital because that nurse. So I went to the one with the NICU unit, which is like an hour away with a little bit more with traffic. And it was rush hour. So we left our house at like 6, and it was still, the freeways were just crappy at that time. So anyway, second we get in the car, they start hurting, and I'm like, dang it, I'm in labor. Like, hopefully they can stop it though, because I've gone into labor early before. My 16-year-old did at 28 weeks, and they were able to hold him off till 36 weeks. So with medication, and I get to the hospital, and they're every 3 minutes, and I'm starting to panic. Like we had to time everything because they were hurting so bad, where like I'm like, hey, just let me get through this contraction. I'm like, I just need to get a wheelchair before the next contraction. So by the time we get to the hospital, it's like 7 something, and it's shift change. So I'm out in the lobby waiting for a nurse to come get me, and I had like 3 contractions, and finally I was like ready to be like bang down the door, like, someone come get me now. So this cute nurse, sweet as can be, she gets me, and she's like, how many weeks are you? I'm like, 26. And she's like, what are you here for? And I said, I'm having contractions, and she seemed really calm at first. She's like, what baby is this? And I said, number 5. And she's like, oh, we need to get you a room. And she like starts going, because she's like, this woman knows when she's in labor. So they get me back, and they're trying to get an IV line in. It takes a couple tries. Those poor nurses, like, because I have a hard time getting IVs in. So they get everything in, and the doctor does a cervical check, and I'm completely good. I'm not dilated. I'm not a face. Like, everything's good. And they, she's like, it's probably just false labor. I'll be back in an hour. We'll check you. Well, probably like 20 minutes goes by, and then all of a sudden I'm like screaming. I'm like, I need to push. Like, I have to push. And the doctor comes in, and she checks, and I'm dilated to a 6, and baby June is breech. And like, this is like every worst case scenario that I could possibly imagine in my head. And I knew what was going to happen at this point. And I knew I was going to have to be put under to deliver. And just because delivering a baby breech would be too stressful on her. And so I'm so glad I went to this hospital, and I had those 2 sweet nurses and this doctor, because she had the best bedside manner I have ever experienced. She just sat there, and she held my hand. She gave me a hug, and so calmly explained everything that was going to happen and everything that was going on, and just took a completely chaotic, stressful situation, and she made it so peaceful, like as peaceful as you possibly can. And so they wheel me back, and my husband can't come in because they're putting me under general anesthesia. So they wheel me back and they start to put me under. My one thing, I'm like, I'll be asleep before this breathing tube, before you intubate me. Yeah. I was only like 5 seconds later and I was out, but I was awake when they were doing that. Like, not a pleasant experience. And the next thing I know, I'm waking up in recovery a few hours later, because by the time they got me over to the table, I was a 10. And so they went ahead and they did what they called a classic cesarean. So on the outside, it just looks like a regular cesarean, but instead of horizontally going in, they go vertically on your uterus. And because baby June was so far down, everything just ripped. My uterus ripped all the way down to my cervix ripped, and the upper part of my private area. I don't know if I can say that on social media what it is, but and my hoo-ha, it ripped too. Like, everything just was like chaos. So they spent 2 hours sewing me back up, putting me back together. And I woke up in recovery, and I was finally, first thing, they're like, do you want to go down and see her now, or do you want to, go in the morning? I'm like, I want to go now. Like, my husband's like, you should probably, I'm like, no, I'm going to see my baby now. So they wheel me down on the stretcher, and I just got to see this sweet little baby girl. She was 1 pound, 11 ounces. And she was already had her breathing tube in, and it was just so magical to see, like, that these doctors were able to save her, save me, and that I was lucky enough that it was only a partial placenta abruption. There are so many things that could have gone wrong. If I would have gone back to my old hospital, they wouldn't have had the NICU and all the stuff, and they would have had to transfer baby June, and I would have been separated from her. So everything ended up working out, like, out of a horrible, chaotic situation. Everything worked out perfectly, so both of us were okay in the end. And I love the hospital she's at, all the NICU nurses, all the nurses that I had in the hospital while I was recovering too, just amazing. NICU nurses are something special. So this Monday, she's going to have another echocardiogram to see if she needs to be transferred. And there's a part of me that's like, I don't want to leave, because everyone is so amazing there. The doctors, the nurses, the staff, everyone is so, so special at this hospital. And I'm sure they're just as special at the other hospital, but I don't want to take that chance. So I'm hoping that her PDA closes and she won't need to be transferred. But if she does, then she does. And they're great doctors. I've heard great things about the other hospital too. I haven't heard anything negative. So I'm attached where we're at right now. So that's the birth story of my sweet little miracle baby, baby June.